ever since the very first massacres of the Assad family, which started with Assad Senior, his father, in Hama 1982, a lot of Syrians started working on kind of human rights and accountability. That obviously was amplified after 2011 when people took it to the streets, and then the crimes started being committed in terms of shooting at protesters, detention, chemical weapons, barrel bombs, and so on. So throughout this period, a lot of human rights organizations were created. A lot of lawyers, started advocating and figuring out ways of how to push accountability. And I was very proud to be amongst them. And what I've been focusing on is kind of strategic litigation cases, strategic opportunities that we could focus on, be it torture at the International Court of Justice, be it something for chemical weapons that could be created specifically for chemical weapons, be it domestic cases where some perpetrators are present. So I tried my best over the last period to kind of find openings in the international system because most doors were closed due to the political issue. I also did that through setting up a human rights organization called the Syrian Legal Development Program, but also as a barrister at Guernica 37, I started figuring out different opportunities that could be done. So I have focused on this for a very long time, and for us, Sunday represented a very big moment in different ways. Mainly, well, I mean, there are a number of things that this day marked. So first of all, the videos coming out of prisons and the videos coming out of different intelligence services and notorious detention centers put in pictures what we've been saying for very long time in terms of evidence of what's been going on in Syria. The second thing is that it also has shown in a way that now there are far more opportunities that we can access. Assad lost his immunities that he had. He lost his political support, so some of his allies might be willing now to try and find justice opportunities. But the most important thing is that hopefully we will not be documenting the same crimes again. We will no longer be documenting the use of chemical weapons, the mass detention and torture, the enforced disappearance, and so on. So we're hopeful that the scale, the type of crimes in Syria will not be at that scale, even if some abuses might happen, and we'll be vigilant towards those, but it's no longer going to be at the same scale. So I think there are multiple options now with regards to international justice, but also there might be options for domestic justice. There might be an opportunity to establish something in Syria with the help of the international community that could look at a vast array of crimes. I mean, in a way, we will need, I was telling a friend today, we will need a factory reset of our approach to advocacy because we've been always looking at like the small opportunities, the small windows, the Myanmar thing, which we've been pushing for some time, to trigger jurisdiction there, focusing on the stuff like chemical weapons where there is a consensus. But we're actually now at a crossroad where we might actually have something that is pretty comprehensive happening in Syria with the support of international community. And so there's a lot of reflection that needs to be done, a lot of strategizing to be done, but definitely there are far more avenues at the national level, but also at the international level. But obviously, this is not an easy process. This is a long and complicated process. It's a process that will hopefully give some closure for some victims and survivors. It's one that I think we will need the help of the international community in. So there's definitely opportunities and access with the interim authorities, but also we need to make sure that it's not an interim matter, right? Or it's just whoever is coming into Syria next. And if they do change after the interim period, that this doesn't just end as a project of one authority or the other. This has to be a cross-authority thing across a long time, and that's what we will be seeking. If you were fighting for the army, that's not necessarily a crime. The exception that the interim authorities have said out loud is that if you have blood on your hands. And so the situation is that there are conscripts who within the Syrian army who have not been on the front lines, who have not been targeting civilians. We're talking about individual criminal responsibility, and obviously there are people who are more senior than others, and I think the priority will need to focus on these. At least for the time being, but not everyone in the Syrian army, particularly after years of kind of quiet and certain fronts, is complicit. Of course, the leaderships are those who, the pilots, those who give the orders, and so on. These are the people that we will make sure they are held to account one way or the other. We would urge that the UK, I mean, the kind of investigations that they have opened, that they push ahead with them, particularly where they have access to the perpetrators. So that's something that we will continue pushing here with the UK, because until anything gets set up in Syria, it takes time. Until anything international gets set up or gets jurisdiction will take time.
Mhm. And what do you expect, or what do you hope for in terms of the rights of women and minorities? Because we've heard a lot of, warnings. Do you think there is hope that this new government will respect human rights for everyone?
I mean, so far they have been doing the right thing, and for the last 11 days, they've been also doing the right thing. They've been saying the right thing and doing the right thing. Whether that continues or not is a matter that we will be kind of following closely and engaging with, and seeing how we can promote more of that, and make sure that these reassurances extend beyond this, the 11 days that have happened. We've seen a shift in the rhetoric. We've seen a shift in how they're dealing with this. These things we have to take note of, and we will be engaging on those issues, and making sure that any breaches that happen should be held to account. But this is now a period where there is incredible instability in different places, and so we have to be vigilant on all fronts and seeing what is going on. And the battle for rights is a battle that never ends. It never ends in Europe. It never ends in Western democracies. This is not something that should be just a matter for people to call out or focus on one country or the other. So because a lot of commentators would say, oh, with the fall of the regime, what's going to happen next? We've been living for so long under different oppressions and different armed groups and so on, and some have evolved and some haven't. And so for Syrians who have been pushing for 54 years for at least basic rights, I'm glad now that the conversation has moved to a more nuanced and important rights, that once we had to deal with war crimes and crimes against humanity, I hope that we no longer have to deal with those and can move on to more individualistic and political and civil liberties, which is already a good step that we're able to have that conversation.